There is a clause in the ANZUS Treaty signed in 1951 between the United States, Australia, and New Zealand that says the alliance can only be terminated by unanimous consent of all parties. It was designed to be permanent, unbreakable, a constitutional guarantee that the Pacific would remain under American strategic protection for as long as the treaty nations existed. On March 19, 2026, Australia invoked a legal mechanism that every treaty scholar said did not exist. They called it popular sovereignty override. The argument was simple. If the people of Australia vote in a binding referendum to terminate a treaty, their government has a democratic obligation to comply regardless of what the treaty text says. 67% of Australians had voted to expel US bases.
I'm not going to go any further. I'm not going to subject you to that. We'll watch a little bit more. We know that this didn't happen, but anyway.
The government argued that enforcing the treaty against the will of a supermajority would be unconstitutional under Australian law. International legal experts called it unprecedented. The US State Department called it a violation of binding obligations, but Canberra moved forward anyway, issuing formal notice of withdrawal. And the legal architecture that had prevented this exact scenario for 75 years collapsed because no one had ever imagined an allied population would democratically choose to leave. To understand how we arrived at this moment, you need to go back to October 14th, 2025. That is the day Donald Trump held a campaign rally in Greenville, South Carolina, where he was asked about his plans for America's Pacific alliances. His answer lasted 4 minutes, but one sentence became the catalyst for everything that followed. Trump said, countries like Australia, they want us to protect them from China, but they don't want to pay for their own defense. They've got universal health care, they've got all these social programs, and we're spending billions to keep their region safe. Maybe it's time we let them figure it out on their own. Let China have them. See how much they like that. The comment was not prepared. It was not in his scripted remarks, but it was recorded. And within 6 hours, it was the lead story on every Australian news network. The reaction in Australia was not what Trump's team expected. There was...
No. We know that didn't happen, right? However, it did. Yeah, I got up early thanks to the cat again. That's something to eat. Oh shit. It prompted me to have a bit of a poke about. So I went to Google and I typed it in, and this is what it came up with. Popular sovereignty in Australia holds that ultimate constitutional authority resides with the people, not the Crown or Parliament, making a shift from British parliamentary supremacy to a system rooted in consent, recognised by the High Court since 1990s. This principle means the Constitution is valid through its acceptance and amendment by citizens. Got to be careful with this. Constitutional basis. The Australian Constitution was established by approval of the Australian people rather than solely by the British Parliament. Role of citizens. Popular sovereignty is exercised through voting in elections, including compulsory and preferential voting and referendums under Section 128. I'm still expelling that demon out of me throat. The throat demon there. The nose demon. When you got a nose demon that ends with a D apparently, and your mum starts with a B, Bub. Because we're operating under a fraudulent constitution, it's something we need to tread very carefully with. But obviously it does exist, doesn't it? As bullshit as that video is. I wonder who put that together. It would be interesting to know who actually put that together. Like, no, not the platform name, the person. It wouldn't come up with that by itself. YouTube, I mean. So, because where we have a little bit of a constitutional problem is the 1901 Constitution was never enacted at Federation. And the 1973 Constitution is just absolute fraud, utterance, and it's an act of treason altogether, that thing. It stands alone as the book itself should be hanged. Because that Constitution puts the Parliament above the Constitution and the people below it. It's supposed to be the other way around, as this says. This is right. If you go to our 1900 Constitution, the only lawful constitution in the land, you will find that. Holds out. Popular sovereignty in Australia holds that ultimate constitutional authority resides with the people, not the Crown or Parliament. Now this is from Google itself, AI overview. No, I don't use AI, this is just the Google's just... I just Googled it and this is what it came up with. Now, I would assume that Google has fact-checked this. Wouldn't you? Role of citizens. Now, there's that word citizen, and a citizen this is not. Role of citizens. Popular sovereignty is exercised through voting in elections, including compulsory and preferential voting and referendums under section 128 of the Constitution. Now, compulsory voting comes from Roman imperialism, where a citizen is a slave who has been freed but still has obligations to the state, which I would argue is not free. When the obligations are voting, taxes, and military service. If we go invoking this, we all go from sovereign to citizen. You cannot be a sovereign citizen. There is a trickery in this. If we invoke this, we invoke citizenry. Very clever. Very clever, Australian Parliament. What's this preferential voting shit? No. You see, we're a citizen. If we invoke citizenry, that means, because the sovereign lives under God's law. The sovereign is a free man or woman in the flesh. So you're a soul who lives in the flesh, not a meat wagon with a soul. That's a citizen. The sovereign is the soul. You are the soul, not meat wagon, right? Not the body, not the flesh. Invoking citizenry I think I've just discovered the mark of the beast. The actual mark of the beast is citizenry. Because to invoke citizenry means to rebuke sovereignty. Popular sovereignty removes individual sovereignty. Very clever. I wonder how many lawyers it took to put that together. Alright, let's go down. High Court interpretation. The High Court has increasingly emphasised that governmental powers are derived from the Australian people. This view asserts that the people are the owners of the legal system, not just beneficiaries. We don't want to own a legal system. We want law. Ugh. Careful, people. Words mean things. And you watch, but because of these videos coming up, this is nasty. This is nasty. People are going to start up and down. Next thing you know, we're going to get caught up in a referendum of some sort. They're going to jump at this. Yes, give them a referendum on that. Bam! That referendum, you just ask for all your rights to be taken away to become a citizen. You're a citizen now. Now you are... If you do this... I and me no longer implies. My go folder. If we go, everything that labels us goes. Everything attached to us. Right. If we invoke this through referendum, we are asking... I'm not going to dox me, son. We have some paperwork to serve on you, Mr. Rogers. Is this you? If we invoke a referendum on this, and it goes ahead, by referendum, you become that thing, a birth certificate. You become the birth certificate. Legally. I'm more inclined to burn the fucking thing. Because I will never say, no, that's me, that's a piece of paper. On me. No, a little bit deeper. Look a bit closer. In there. Boo! There. On me. Can the piece of paper do that? No. That takes a soul to scare a spirit. You doing, Ranger? You good boy? Yeah. Really? You got a little squeaky voice on you, haven't you? He got really, really sick once. We thought he was going to lose him. But yeah, all his fur was falling out. He was bleeding and all sorts. We don't know what was going on with him. But we fixed you up, didn't we, boy? But we had to give him some baths and some pretty nasty stuff. And he wouldn't let us dry him off or rinse him off properly. And he licked it off and lost his voice for a couple of weeks. And when he came back, he only had a squeak left. He come good. Give me a fatty. Fat cat and friend. Speaking of friend, what do you want, Panda? They do buggers. What? Yes. High Court interpretation. The High Court has increasingly emphasised that governmental powers are derived from the Australian people. Yeah. This view asserts that the people are the owners of the legal system, not just beneficiaries. Now, the High Court... This is a trick, guys. Because we don't have powers. Nobody has powers. Nobody has dominion over anybody. We have authority over a system. We have sovereignty over a system. And God has sovereignty over us. That's what sovereignty is. A sovereign is a free man in the flesh, living on God's earth, living under God's law. Living under God's commandments. He commands us to do these things because it is the law. And any legislation that goes against God's law goes against the law. This is why Australian government it is a corporation operating out of a territory, a foreign nation state. It's a foreign nation state. Now, it's bullshit, and that bullshit thing that's stating that Trump most probably, I would actually put money on it. I'd put another cup of this damn fine coffee on it. That he probably did say that about Australia, that we depend on America to protect us from China. What? Why do we need protecting from China? Since when has China ever invaded anybody? They just want Taiwan back. After all these years, America's kept them in check. No, America has fucking poked and prodded and prodded and poked and poked and prodded and poked. And annexed and annexed and annexed. Surrounding China with as many military bases as they can. And China still hasn't retaliated. Let's look at this from a sensible point of view, shall we? What do you think all these nations are banding together to create the BRICS nations? They've fucking had enough of America. No point going to war with them. Why go to war when you can just win without the war? That's the difference between being a dummy spitting fucking idiot and strategy. In other words, we're not going to live under your oppression anymore. There's no point going to war. It's a waste of fucking resources. And a complete and utter waste of human life. It damages the planet. Which is going to make you irrelevant. You're not relevant anymore. We have our own trading currencies. And we will trade with other nations in whatever way suits their sovereign economy. See, the whole idea of BRICS is you don't have to trade in the digital Chinese yuan. You don't have to trade in the Russian ruble. They'll quite happily give us tech. What do you think they've been buying up all the silver and gold and that? They'll quite happily trade with us in return for minerals. Something of value. Wood chips. Actually, I don't even think they want wood chips anymore much. I don't understand why we're still chipping. America, I'm going to put this to America. Go home. Just go home. Many of us do not want you here. A lot of people think they want you here, but they don't realise that you are the antagonist. You are the fucking problem. You gaslight countries with Israel to create problems so that you can annex territory and install regimes. I would like nothing better than for some kind of a referendum to go ahead, but it has to be a sovereign referendum, not a citizen's referendum. Hey, be careful what you wish for, people. Be careful what... Right? Beware the false friend who come bearing gifts. If someone keeps turning up with gifts and you can't really understand why, it's because they're trying to railroad you, they're trying to control you or stop you from achieving a certain goal. It's because they know you're onto something, they're controlled opposition. How do you get rid of them? Accept it, waste it, give it away to somebody else. Cool. I'll have your meaningless shit. Hey kids, who wants all this? I'll take it and I'll give it away. I'll turn your trying to buy me into genuine charity. I'll use it to feather somebody else's nest. I don't want it. I don't give to receive. I give to create, to build, to expand upon, to add value. Not to take away, not to receive materialistic garbage. just thought you had me, didn't you? Evolution. While Australia originated with parliamentary sovereignty under the British Empire, it has evolved into a system where, especially post-1986, the Australian people are the ultimate source of legal and political authority. Let's read that again. While Australia originated with parliamentary sovereignty under the British Empire, it has evolved into a system where, especially post-1986, the Australian people are the ultimate source of legal and political authority. No. Well, yeah. Because the 1901 Constitution was never enshrined into law in federation, the government stayed on top of the people. In 1901, this has been playing out for 125 years. This game plan that we're watching unfold in front of us now. It has been planned and unfolding and playing out in little incremental bits and pieces for 125 years to become an annexed nation. And now we're in the way. Indigenous perspective. Indigenous sovereignty is understood by some as distinct, pre-existing and ongoing connection to land and culture, separate from the constitutional framework. Indigenous sovereignty is understood by some as a distinct, pre-existing and ongoing connection to land and culture, separate from the constitutional framework. Well, I'm going to put this in the description, and I suggest that you read it over and over and over again. This is a very clever little bit of legislature. This is extremely, extremely slippery. It doesn't seem like it at the surface. What it does is it separates anyone who is not full-blooded Indigenous from sovereignty. Abos, how many of you can claim that you are full-blooded Indigenous? Define Indigenous. You are Indigenous to the land in which you are born. We need to get together on this. We cannot be separated. We cannot agree to disagree. We need to agree to agree. We need to come together and agree that we agree. Popular sovereignty in Australia is therefore the foundational principle that the Constitution and government exist for and by the people, with the power to change it resting with them. Who is them? Who is them? See, that's a play with words. Popular sovereignty is sovereignty as a collective. which makes you a citizen in Australia, is therefore the foundational principle that the Constitution and government exist for and by the people. Where does it say in favour of the people? It doesn't. With the people, with the power to change it resting with them. Who is them? The government or the people? Popular sovereignty in Australia, therefore, the foundational principle that the Constitution and government exist for and by the people, with the power to change it resting with them. You see why they've dumbed us down at school? This needs to be... Oh, this is nasty. Now do you get where this whole, how they popularised, the terminology sovereign citizenship? A sovereign citizenship. It's the citizenship. It's a ship the citizens are on, and the sovereignty lies within the ship. Not the sovereignty lies within the citizenry. Which means it lies within the ship. Not within the people on the ship. We're just passengers now. And the captain has taken over sovereignty of all the crew and the passengers. Exists for and by the people. Popular sovereignty in Australia is therefore the foundational principle that the Constitution and government exist for and by the people, with the power to change it resting with them. Which people? See, it's not stating they the people, us the people, or we the people. It's not stating by the sovereign people, by the people of the government. It doesn't state. This is where that wishy-washy language comes from. Must, may, 6, 7. Close enough? No. 6 one half dozen the other is close enough. That's 50-50. 6, 7 ain't 50-50. Now this is what I googled it, and this is what's come up with it. This is what AI has interpreted it all as. Hey. Popular sovereignty in the Constitution. Oh, that's American, no. Don't want the American one, we want it in the Australian one. See if I can find it proper. Okay, this isn't proper, but we're getting some better dates. Popular sovereignty in the Australian Constitution establishes that ultimate political authority resides with the people rather than solely with the British Crown or Parliament. It is primarily expressed through the democratic election of representatives. Section 24 and amendment process, Section 128, and has been solidified by High Court recognition. I'm going to suss out Section 24 and 128 in a minute. Key aspects of popular sovereignty in the Australian context. Constitutional authority. While technically established by the UK Parliament in 1901, the Constitution's legitimacy is derived from its acceptance and ongoing adoption by the Australian people. The people, as source, the Constitution is interpreted as having been adopted by the people, and government power is derived from them. Correct. I don't like that word power, but anyway, it's temporary. It's temporary leased authority. We temporarily grant it to them to govern for us in our favour. Section 128, referendum. This section enshrines popular sovereignty by requiring any constitutional change to be approved by a majority of voters nationwide and in a majority of states. Section 24, representation. The House of Representatives must be directly chosen by the people, making the electoral system a key component of this principle. Judicial recognition. Since 1992, High Court justices, example Dean and Toohey, have noted that powers of government belonging to and are derived from the people. Evolution. This is down far more. Evolution. Popular sovereignty has evolved through legislative developments like universal franchise, preferential voting, and compulsory voting, which strengthens the people's role in governing. No, I don't like preferential voting at all. Because that's backroom deals. Preferential voting happens in the government without our knowledge of who's voting for who in Parliament and what legislature. Note, the concept of popular sovereignty in Australia is sometimes contrasted with the traditional legally supreme authority of the UK Parliament, but modern jurisprudence treats the Australian people as the ultimate source of constitutional authority. From Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Section enshrines popular sovereignty by requiring any constitutional change to be approved by a majority of voters nationwide and in a majority of states. Right. Is there a political solution to all of our problems? There kind of is. I think I've just found it. Somehow we need to agree to agree, not disagree to disagree bullshit. Because agree to disagree is just a way of not having a conversation. We need to invoke Section 128 referendum to dissolve Parliament and so that we can then enact Section 24 representation, so we can directly choose the House of Representatives ourselves. Instead of it being a career path, instead of them applying for a job, we choose the people and we install them ourselves. And under Section 128 referendum and Section 24 combined, we have an amendment enshrined into the Constitution to install recall election on the grounds of if we are not happy with a mayor, a member of council, a local member of parliament, a state parliamentarian or any federal parliamentarian, that we can in our electorate area, if someone that we're not happy with just in our electorate, we can have a vote to have them removed from their position and someone more suitable put in their place. Do we pick another random? No, there should be a next person in line. We'd be able to see by their physical reference rather than curriculum vitae. Don't care how good you are on paper, what's your character? By their reference, by referencing their performance and behaviour, that person would be perfect for that job. Would you? Right? And we put them in that job. We don't care if you don't want that job. Hey? You do that job and do it well, and you... then we will get noble, honourable people in these positions. We also need term limits, and I mean real term limits, not just a term limit and then another election and that person can keep running. No, I mean like in certain positions, any public service needs to be limited without a long-term career path. When I say term limits, a starting point. You must have lived real life first, and then you can go into a public service. Otherwise you have no idea what real life is, do you? Majority of cops haven't got a bloody clue. Majority of people, look at these fat useless clouds floating around at Centrelink and places like that. They're about as useful as a cowpat. Fertiliser is about all they are. Walk and talk and fertiliser. They can press the buttons and tick the boxes, that's about it. We also need to bring in something similar to America's Second Amendment. We need to become a real sovereign nation, not sucking off the tit of American military. We do definitely, like Bosie's right on that. Like I said, do I, man? No, there's a lot of stuff I don't agree with on Bosie. A lot of stuff. I don't think he's as genuine as you think. I actually think maybe he's compromised. Because he started out alright. But then again... I'm going to think on it for a while. I think I think we all need to think on this for a while. These things do exist, I know that. I absolutely know that. This is most definitely legislation that we can use to our advantage, but we can also use it against ourselves if we are not very careful with it, because of the wishy-washy must-may scenario. And because the 1973 Constitution is a complete and utter act of fraud, forgery, 1901 Constitution wasn't actually enshrined. We have to do this through the 1900 Constitution and actually become a sovereign federation. We're not a sovereign federation. To do that, we must become a republic. My granddad would roll in his grave if you heard me say that. So I'm not indoctrinated. I don't just hold all of his beliefs staunchly and you won't budge me on that. I've always barracked for Hawthorn. Right? Why? Because my dad did. That's retarded to do that. So you probably roll over and then roll over again and go, nah. What did I just eat? Well, at least he's thinking for himself. Yeah, man, the good Lord's going to knock this one around all day, I reckon. Have an amazing day, people. Talk to you later.